you are and whatever day it is for you. This is going to be a good episode. We got Stuart Heath with us on the show from Harvard Grace Capital over there in Tennessee. They do syndications and they're starting their first fund. So if you guys have been interested in either of those, this is the episode to listen to. We're also going to be talking a little bit about regional investing. I know in the past couple of episodes, we've kind of gone over the difference between choosing an asset and going deep on it, or choosing a location and going deep on the location. So that's what we'll be talking about a bit here. So Stuart, I'm excited to jump into this. Thanks for hopping on.
Thanks for having me, Gabe. Quite an honor. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I told you before we got on here, we always like to start with stories. We like to hear how people got to where they are. So why don't you take us back to the beginning of your story in real estate and tell us how you got here?
Beginning of my real estate story is kind of funny, I think. So I'm a CPA, and I come out of college in 1987, and which was right after the big 1986 Tax Act, and which kind of destroyed certain sectors of real estate investing. And so, as a baby business person back in the day, we were told real estate is bad. Real estate is bad. Don't ever do that. And I remember hearing bankers say, we don't lend on real estate anymore. Well, fast forward.
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah. They much preferred rolling stock and collateral that had wheels and could be in another state in an hour. And it was just a sign of the times. Yeah. It was just a sign of the times. And the focus of that was the old real estate limited partnership, which was abusive tax rules, but Congress passed it and people just used it. And anyway, so all really up through the early 90s, real estate was bad. And so I was with Price Waterhouse, a big national firm, and I had the entrepreneurial itch, got out on my own, and almost all of my clients that I was attracting were somehow connected to real estate. And they were contractors, and some of them were high producing real estate agents, and they were all doing everything. They were all doing fix and flips and selling real estate and doing all this kind of stuff. And so finally, and I'm just working away building my practice, and finally about 10 years into this, late 90s, I'm doing my tax practice in March late one night. It's 2:00 in the morning, and I'm slaving away, and I'm realizing I'm not building any wealth here. What's going on? And I sit there and I look at my clients. First time I really looked at them, and it's like none of my clients are paying any taxes, and then they go sell these pieces of property, and they're banking 6-figure profits and all this kind of stuff. And it finally dawned on me that real estate was maybe not bad. And so that sort of spurred me to start taking a look. And then I start talking to my clients, and we did some deals together. And then I bought my first duplex, and then I bought 14 duplexes about 6 months after that. And literally then I got my contractor's license, and then I started doing building and developing, and I was doing it all, and created up my own property management company, and really just got the fever. All the while I'm still a practicing CPA, and had some rough times during 2009 to 2010. Left a CPA practice, went into the corporate world, held several CFO level or C-level positions, COO and CFO positions along the way, and then around 2017, I said, I just want to get back to real estate. And so to finance that, I did some, fractional CFO consulting gigs, but then we just started, I gathered a board around me, and we started pursuing commercial real estate. I didn't like residential real estate anymore. I didn't like it when I had 200 residential units at one point, and decided that was the nearest definition of hell on earth I could ever imagine. But I like commercial, and that's been a good move for us. And so since 21, we've done 10 deals in our I-65 corridor from Nashville to Birmingham, and that's been our geographic focus, because we do manage everything that we do. So I can't do something in Texas or Phoenix or anything like that. So we like to keep them close, and so we've pursued various different asset classes in that geography.
Yeah. Yeah, man, there are so many different ways to take this. I mean, the thing that kind of stood out to me about your story, first of all, that you attempted to make essentially a vertically integrated investing company. You had the property management company, you had the construction company, you were buying properties, and so you were making all these different companies side by side that served each other. I'm curious, do you feel like that is like if you were to go back to yourself, whenever this was, I think you said this was the 2000s.
2000s, yeah.
Yeah, if you were to go back to that version of yourself, would you give the advice of going down that path, or would you say just buy and then hire third party to do the other things?
Well, I still do property management for our own stuff. I wouldn't do property
But
management
do
for other
you
people.
don't do it as a property management? You don't have other clients that you
I do
manage
not.
their properties, right?
I do not. You end up with divided loyalties between your third party customer and yourself. And most of us, we was like, well, my customer always comes first. That's not being really true to ourselves. We're going to come first. But really, what you end up doing, you don't serve either one of them very well. So,
Mm,
yeah, we do it, but we don't do it for other people.
yeah,
I would never do construction again myself. I went and got the
interesting.
license. It wasn't that hard. I was a CPA that got a license, but I couldn't frame a wall if you held a gun to my head. But and there's not enough margin in that business. I mean, the
Mm,
guys who are good at it are really good because they're so focused on the details. And you'd think, well, CPA is not focused on details. No, I'm focused on big picture
on
project.
numbers.
Yeah, and so and frankly, that experience was very much I became a believer in division of labor and sort of the industrial process. Everybody's a specialist, and construction um, is a specialization, and there are experts in it, just like there are experts in property management and experts in capital raising and experts in underwriting and things like that. Doesn't mean we all can't wear a few hats, but we shouldn't wear them all.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's kind of the boat that I take. I've talked to a couple guys who, they have done that same thing, and they've built out a construction company, and they built out property management company, a brokerage, all these things alongside their investing company. And um, to me, when I see that, at least when I think of myself going down that path, I just see everything being diluted almost, and like my focus. None of them would work well because I wouldn't be able to focus enough on anything individually for it to grow. So yeah, that kind of aligns with what I thought you'd say.
The classic
Um,
business mistake is when you don't hire the expert to run that division. If you're
yeah,
thinking you're just going to supervise it with mid-level management, it's not going to work. Not
yeah,
going to work.
yeah, that makes sense. So the other thing before we get into, I really want to talk about your regional investing, but the other thing that I wanted to talk about, you mentioned you don't like single family, and that's kind of contrary to what a lot of people start out with. Most people start out with a single family house and go to duplexes and then get a little bit bigger and then to get to commercial. You had up to 200 single family doors, which is a portfolio. That's a lot that
200,
you got to
only
actually.
200 doors. There was a mix between single-family condos and duplexes. So
Okay. But yeah, I mean, all essentially residential,
all
even a
residential.
duplexes.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you really didn't like that. What was it that you didn't like about single family that you do like that's not present in
Yeah.
commercial?
um, well, I think they're perfectly fine as an asset class, and I didn't like managing them. And going back to our other discussion, I didn't have good managers. I hired a property manager to handle things, but you know, things weren't getting handled. So,
Mm,
being a control freak, I
mm,
would march on in and handle things and go in and try to collect the rent and people in their homes. It's not a rational. It's not necessarily a business transaction anymore, and I'm just sort of black and white kind of guy. Just look, if you don't pay your rent, please leave. And that just doesn't work in the residential world. And I'm just so glad I wasn't in that during the COVID pandemic, because look
Oh
what
yeah.
happened in many states. I mean, people just got to squat for a year or more. And it's like nobody ever seemed too concerned about the landlord, who probably had a mortgage payment they had to carry, you know, you know, you know, counting on that rent to come in. So I just don't like the residential, or the, I guess I'd call it the retail business transaction. In my in our work now, we're dealing with business people.
Mm,
And I'm a CPA. I've always dealt with business people, and so it's just more comfortable to me. So
yeah.
so
Well, with
it's all
that,
about
let's
me that didn't like that. I
yeah.
think they're perfectly fine for investment. So,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And something you mentioned in there that, I've run into and countless other investors have run into is if you have a bad property manager, you're going to have a bad time.
yeah,
If you can't find a good one, then it's just going to be, pulling your hair out, hitting your head against the wall. It's not going to be a lot of fun. We had this
yeah,
one mobile home park that we owned, and we had a bad property manager, and we drug our feet, and that was the mistake we made, is that we were like, let's coach her, let's try to get her to work, and we should have seen the signs and immediately been like, no, we need to cut loose and find somebody else. But once we did find somebody good, and thank God we have somebody that's a rock star right now managing that property, it's night and day. And it's just like all of a sudden the property becomes not something that's draining your energy, but something that you look forward to doing the meetings, to seeing how things are progressing, to coming up with solutions to problems. So yeah, it's night and day.
yeah,
But so you mentioned single family, you don't like it. You like interacting with businesses. You said you like to invest in commercial now regionally.
yeah.
So before we get into regional and how that's kind of impacting your investing strategy, let's talk about the actual things you're buying. Commercial is a huge umbrella. There's a lot in it. Industrial,
Right.
multifamily is commercial. You name it, commercials. There's a lot of things out there that are commercial. So what specifically do you like to buy in the commercial umbrella?
Well, my absolute favorite asset class is medical office.
Medical
Uh,
office,
we
interesting.
bought suburban office and some small strip retail. We have a very large storage facility in Huntsville, and and we always look at multifamily within our region. But as we talked about before the show, we're all about the numbers.
Mm,
Our deals must cash flow from day one, and which means you got to buy it right. And I've yet to have a multifamily offer even entertained. We underwrite a lot. We make a lot of offers, and because I think multifamily is a great asset class.
mm, mhm.
And yes, it's residential. And so, yeah, we would hire a property manager for that one. But I honestly don't know that we'll ever get into that asset class. We do follow multifamily quite a bit because it sort of dictates everything else. But
Yeah.
suburban office, and not necessarily downtown office. Um, a lot of people from different parts of the country say, "Are you crazy? You're doing office? Office is dead." Um, Office has never been dead in the South. We've always pretended like there was no pandemic, and people kept going to the office. And a couple of our properties were full before, during, and after the pandemic. And so and I focus on the suburban office, and just like medical, this is where I break it down. Um, I like the tenant mix where that's where they see their customers. You
Mm,
get the big
mhm.
downtown office, and they got their lawyers and whatever. Their clients probably hardly ever go there. But you got your doctors and your dentists and your state farm agents and your mortgage companies, and that's where people go to meet with that business. And so they're customer facing businesses, and that's kind of what we look at when we're looking at a property. It's very much like retail. Some people call it service retail, what I call suburban office. uh, and I try to stay away from ones that have restaurants in them, because restaurants tend to be less stable. They also tend to attract pests of certain kinds, and they always impact everybody around them. So but we'll probably have a restaurant one day, but that's what we look for.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, it's got to meet the numbers. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So medical office, that's kind of interesting. I'm actually just right now, I buy mobile home, RV, self storage, but we got something happened. Deal came into our purview, and we are buying a retail location, and it's the first one I've ever done. But it's actually I've never dealt with triple net leases. I've never thought about having a business customer rent from you, and I like the world. I like the idea of it, and so it's a new thing. Medical office makes a lot of sense. That's something that I've never ever looked at. What do you like? What are the top 3 things that when you see them, you're like, okay, this is a deal, outside of just the numbers, what are the value add elements that you look for when you're looking for a medical office?
Well, and if as soon as you start getting into that world, you realize how competitive it gets. But um, it's the stickiness of the tenants. For starters, they come in and they usually do a 10-year lease, and the reason they're inclined to do that is because, at least in our markets, the tenant's doing all their own build out. So they're paying for all of that. So they're sinking $500,750,000 into their build out. So they don't want to have to walk away from that at the end of a 3-year lease or a 5-year lease. So they're doing these beautiful 10-year leases, and if you write your lease right, which adjusts to inflation, and through one mechanism or another, triple net leases in the office world are increasingly popular in our region now. And which is a bit unusual in a multi-tenant environment, but it's just math. It actually works beautifully. So I just really like the stickiness of those tenants because, and then I've already renewed many people coming off of a 10-year lease, and they renew for another 10 years, and because that's where their customers know where they are. They're dealing with hundreds, if not a couple of thousand customers, and do you want to communicate to them, say, hey, I moved across town? Because they they see the value of part of their practice is people knowing where they are.
Yeah.
And they tend to be less cost conscious. There's a lot of margin, a lot of money in medicine. I've never had an argument with a medical professional over whether it's going to be $28 or $29 a square foot. I mean, we just don't even negotiate. Sometimes they want to, well, can you contribute some X to our build out? And so then we arm wrestle over that. Everybody else is always, what can you do for me on the rate? Frankly, that's the wrong argument to have with your potential landlord, but because the rate, it makes very little difference on a monthly basis, if you know what I mean. It makes a huge difference when it goes to selling that. So those are the things that I really, really love about medical office buildings. Just really steady, long-term net operating income.
So do you, for medical office, do you have to build or buy existing, or how does zoning work? Is there a specific zoning that you need to have for medical office, or can it just be any commercial?
Depends on where you are. Sometimes the zoning will use the same. The biggest issue is the parking ratio to square foot of the building. The same as a general office. Sometimes medical will have a slightly higher requirement for parking ratio. Those are really not my issues. I'm always buying existing. I'm buying stabilized income already. So some developer who made the big bucks has already solved all of those problems. So usually the buildings we have are either 90% or 100% full, and so it just becomes a financial transaction to us. How much are we willing to pay for that stream of income? So.
And I have no idea what are cap rates for this kind of product?
All over the board, newer stuff, and so up in Nashville, cap rates for that are going to be in the low sixes. down in Birmingham, and we just bought one in September at almost a 9. It was 8.9 something, and I thought about just lying saying it's a 9 cap. No, it was 8.99, something like that. And it's like, and I'm borrowing at 6.25. And it's like, this is tremendous positive leverage. And that's just the Birmingham market. And that building is just so strong, 100% full.
Yeah,
And
9 cap. I mean, mobile home parks aren't even 9 caps anymore.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
impressive. What?
yeah, I see storage in at 5.75, and
Yeah, it's crazy.
and it
I
is
just
great.
underwrote one that was in a 4. It had value add, but I was just like, what? Nobody's gonna buy a 4 cap. That's
Right.
ridiculous.
Maybe in 2020, but yeah, not today. Of
Yeah.
course, rates are coming down. We're at an attractive level now. But
Yeah.
the cap rate just depends on where you are, frankly.
So, it sounds like, you've sold the asset class to me. It sounds interesting, but there's always downsides to everything. So what are the things that make it less attractive? Medical office. We've kind of pigeonholed ourselves into medical office. We're not going to get into regional, but yeah,
It's okay.
talk a little bit.
To me, the only thing that detracts from it is on a case by case basis who your tenants are. Sometimes you get a problem tenant. Sometimes you get a tenant that is maybe 50% of your building, and sometimes they think that they like to use that leverage, but the lease is the lease. But the only thing that takes away from that asset class to me is potential just conflict with an individual tenant, and it is, and in the residential world you can work that out usually in a few months. You can either evict them if you have to, or they agree to leave, whatever. It's harder when you have a problem with a tenant and you're dealing with 7.5 years left to go on a 10-year lease. And they have a huge investment in there. Sometimes I would say doctors more than others, but not just doctors. Sometimes they don't play by the rules. And I mean, I just had one. He was moving out. He'd been building a new building. I had already re-rented his space to another doctor in the building, and he wouldn't leave. I mean, just caused all kinds of cascading problems, and and a lawsuit ensued. So it's
fun.
just no, and that it wasn't just because he's a doctor, but to me that does tend to go more with a doctor mentality. But a lot of practices have professional practice managers, and therefore, you're work dealing with business people again, and not doctors. So.
Yeah. That's funny. My sister is a nurse, and she would always say that doctors can be a little bit headstrong, and so I can imagine them as a tenant. That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, hey man, we have run down the clock. I really wanted to get into regional, so actually before we move on, let's just talk about the benefits that you've seen focusing exclusively on a region versus an asset class. Just really high level, because we do need to move on. But what do you see the benefits are?
Very high level, and probably goes back to me being a control freak and us managing. So we just have to have access. I'm much more comfortable investing in an asset in an area that I have known my entire life. I've lived from Birmingham to Nashville my entire life, and I know these markets, and we follow them, and that's not a criticism of anybody else who specializes in an asset class and will pursue that across the country. This is just what we've chosen to do, and we think it helps us deliver good results for our investors.
Nice, easy enough. All right, with that, I'm pushing us into the quick question round. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Starts with education. Could be any form. Could be a mentorship program you've been a part of, a conference you've gone to, a movie you've seen, anything. I just need one recommendation for real estate.
I joined a mastermind called Raise Masters, It is specifically targeted at learning how to raise capital, primarily for real estate. The founder is really skilled at that. He's done a lot of real estate investing, and I highly recommend the program. I'm just about to re up for my 5th year. So.
Oh, nice. 5th year. Sweet. I like that. All right. Next question is for your younger self. Let's go back to the Stuart who was still a CPA at PwC. Go back to him, look him in the eye, give him one piece of advice moving forward.
Stay a little bit longer. You didn't know what you didn't know, and learn some of your business lessons on somebody else's dime.
Interesting. All right. Stay a little bit longer. So stay a little bit in the corporate world a little bit longer.
Yeah, just a little bit longer.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. That's contrary to most people say, I wish I got started sooner. But I like that. You know, there's positives and negatives to each side. So I like that. All right. Next question is about the U.S. It's a big place. There is a lot of opportunity out there. Give me the single metro, and in your case, you're very local. So give me the single city you're most excited about investing in today.
Huntsville, Alabama.
Huntsville. All right. I've actually heard that a lot of interest in Huntsville. What is the driving factor there? What's driving so much growth in Huntsville?
Well, mainly it's the federal government, but in the last 8 years, there's also been a massive interest from other corporate types, manufacturing moving in, high tech manufacturing. Facebook has a major data center there. Polaris has a factory. Amazon it was on the list for Amazon HQ too, if you remember that, but they put a major.
Everybody's like Charlotte or something like that.
Yeah, everybody's here. Not to mention all the defense. All the defense people were already here. The FBI is building a second Quantico, Virginia training facility on the Redstone Arsenal. The CIA is here. The NSA is here. They won't tell you how many people.
I did not know Huntsville was all about the defense contractors. That's interesting.
It is, and it's been that way for a long time. NASA is based here, and so all of that, and it's been here for years. And that also spurs off a lot of private sector stuff. But we've seen a much more balanced private sector. Even as the space industry goes private sector, Jeff Bezos' rocket engine plant is based here. They make rocket engines here in Huntsville. So it's a diverse but ample labor pool here. And it's really not just Huntsville, it's the center, but the entirety of northern Alabama is it's just right for the taking, and it's going to run this way at least another 20 years. So, lots of opportunity.
I love it. All right, next question is about finding deals. It all starts with getting in contact with the seller and penning that purchase agreement. So, what is your favorite way to generate leads and find new deals?
These days, I have a fairly extensive broker network who we have closed deals with, and they bring me deals. But some of my favorite quiet time is perusing CoStar and Crexy, just sort of cruising around, looking at stuff, or just driving around and following up on something I saw on the side of the road. And sometimes I'll see a building that I want, and we'll go and contact the seller directly. And usually we have a door slammed in our face, but that's okay. The fun is in the hunt.
It's my favorite. Yeah, exactly. It's my favorite way to go. Just getting that door slammed in your face.
Yeah.
All right. Next question is about lessons learned. Not every deal we get into goes the way we expect it. In fact, pretty much every time something's going to go wrong, and that's when we get to learn a lesson. So what was a deal that went a little bit sideways for you? And then what was the lesson you pulled from it?
I had one sort of a professional retail building west of Huntsville in a town called Madison. The biggest tenant in there was a medical facility, and long story short, the lady who ran it was just a fraud. So I got exactly one rent payment out of her after we bought it, and then we had to evict. And I mean, so long story short, we've turned over the occupancy of that building 50% worth, and now we're in such better position. But not the lesson learned is not trusting your gut. because I met her as we try to meet all the tenants and talk through, especially the big ones, and there was something off there, and not following through and doing more due diligence. When you get the spidey senses going, do some more due diligence, check it out, and I could have still bought the building, but maybe could have gotten as much as $1 million off the sales price, because we did get the seller to guarantee their rent for a period, and it wasn't enough, but it sure made the deal work. So yeah, just trust your gut is what I would say, and do your due diligence.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is a lesson you don't want to learn the hard way is, skipping due diligence steps and then getting into the deal and being like, well, crap, that wasn't true.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Trusting your gut is definitely something that I've had happen to myself. Is just getting into a deal and being like, there's something off. I don't know what it is, but there's something off. And sometimes I've even walked away just because couldn't put
Yeah.
my finger on it, but things just seemed
We
weird.
walked away from plenty. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Next question is about is the opposite of what we just talked about. We just talked about lessons learned, things going wrong, but sometimes things go right, and those are deals that stick out in your mind as your favorite. So, what deal is that for you?
Well, one of our earliest deals, a suburban office building, and we were buying some under market leases, and we knew it, so we thought it was going to be a long slog. To where we could get everything back to market. You got to wait for leases to mature and stuff like that. Um, what we didn't realize was going to happen is that town was going to put in a sewer moratorium, and nothing new could be built. So here I am with the largest office building, one of the largest buildings, almost in the entire city, and every time we have a renewal, I mean, rental rates, they're like $10 a foot more than where we bought it from, 2 years later. And so we've renewed most everybody's leases, and I'm their buddy. I'm going in at 80% of market, and we're killing it. I mean, we're just absolutely killing it. So just put numbers on it. Our average building per square foot going in was like 17.25 a foot. 4 years later, we're at 28.
Wow, that's
I mean,
crazy.
huge. I mean, we're just and really more just accidental brilliance. That was one we closed in early 2022, and we got a 10-year loan at 3.25%. So
Oh,
we got rates going like this, and just cheap money we'll never see again. And so yeah, we're doing cash on that one about 16%. So
that's awesome. Well, that luck comes your way sometimes. When it
sometimes,
does,
yeah,
you just
yeah,
stick with it because
yeah,
other times luck will go the other way. So I
yeah.
love it. All right, that leads us to the very last question. This is for the listeners who've given us a lot to think about. I'm sure people want to reach out, get in contact with you. This is a two-parter. Where can they find you, and then what can they expect when they reach out?
Yeah. The best way to find us is at harvardgrace.com. You can find my Calendly link, and I do invite anybody and everybody to book some time with me on there. I can talk real estate all day long. We have lots of resources on the site, free resources. You can get a link to the book that we just came out with, Don't Do What I Did, My 10 Rules for Investing in Commercial Real Estate. We've got other free resources like questions you should be asking your passive activity sponsor. There's a glossary of investment terms for newer people. So all of that's free. Just sign up and you can get, you will get on our email list, but it's easy to get off if you don't want to be on that too. But I do invite anybody and everybody to reach out. I'm happy to chat anytime.
Perfect. I'll put that link in the show notes. So if you guys want to reach out, all you got to do is click the little more in the description. It'll pull down that full description, and in there you can find Stuart's links. All right, man. That wraps it up. Thank you very much for hopping on the show.
Thank you, Gabe. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. For everybody who's with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are the reason we do this. So if you guys have any questions, reach out to me, Gabe, at therealestateinvestingclub.com. If you guys want to support the show, just leave us a review, comment, anything like that. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.